Welcome to Soulful. Whether you're navigating challenges or celebrating victories,
We're here to remind you that every step on your path is meaningful. I'm Tiff,
and I'm Jess,
so let's clear our mind as we fill our soul. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We're here again, Jess and Tiff. We're excited to be here. It's been again a little bit of time since we last saw each other. Yeah, lots of
Yeah.
things are moving, lots of things are shaking. And yeah, just wondering how all of you are tuning in here with us, whatever time of day this is for you. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And
Mhm.
before we kick into today's topic, because it's been a little bit of time, Jess, catch us up. What's been happening in your world?
Oh my goodness. What's been happening in my world? Well, I did just get back from a vacation, which
Ooh,
is very, very lovely. Actually, and I do want to share something with that because I was thinking about it while I was there. So we traveled to do a concert. So it was a music festival, it's a 4-day music festival called Rockville or Welcome to Rockville. And I got to see a lot of bands that I used to listen to when I was like an early teen, like, between probably 12, 15, 16, something like that. And yeah, Jimmy Eat World was playing middle, like in the middle
yep.
by them. So I was like in the moment, I was like listening to the song. And this also happened when I listened to Shania Twain. I seen her in concert for the first time. I just had like such an emotional reaction. I was just like, I just started crying.
Oh,
And the same thing happened when I was listening to that song live. And I don't know what it is, but when I like after when I went back to the condo that we were staying at, I was like thinking, I was like, I think every time that I get to like do something or like achieve something that I didn't maybe see possible or
right.
wasn't like, yeah, I'd never like seen myself do. I don't know, I think like a little piece of me, like just like it heals, right? It just feels really healing. And also I'm like, man, I think like 12-year-old me would think I'm probably like the coolest person right now. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe that's what it's all about, right? Like maybe that's what the whole point of this is to
Mm,
like make that little person or the younger person yeah, just think that I'm really cool. So that was a really yeah, it was just a really special moment. So this vacation was, I mean, obviously awesome because it's vacation and it was a lot of yeah, a lot of different music and food and different, sightseeing and all of the stuff. But that was like that moment was just really special for me. So I hold a lot of gratitude for all of those versions of myself. And yeah, especially this one too, to like take some time to reflect on how like proud I guess I am of that. So yeah, that
mm.
that was it was just something I was thinking about and I was like, I think I want to share that today.
I love that. That moment you just like, you cried and it's like younger me didn't see it possible. And it's like, we're
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, like just rocking out to like Jimmy Eat World, Bowling for Soup, Green Day, Lincoln Park.
Oh
Like
my gosh.
it was like a very, very like surreal, cool thing. Yeah, for sure.
Did you go all 4 days? Like, was there concerts each day?
We
Okay.
did two out of four, and I'm so happy that we only did two. It was like 40 degrees. It was so hot.
Yeah.
There was like 250,000 people, like over the course of the 4 days. Those are numbers I've seen online. I don't know if anyone's fact checked me. I don't know if that's real. It's just what I've seen. Okay.
Welcome to
But
Rockville.
they
Yeah.
have like the drones now. So like
hmm
I seen like a drone footage of the concert and I mean, I was at home. I was like actually back in Canada at that point. I seen it. I was like, I immediately became so anxious. I was like, I was in the middle of all of that because there's like so many people. I felt so claustrophobic. But when I was there, it didn't feel that way. But it's just so funny. But yeah,
That
we
is
did
funny.
two days out of the four. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. I didn't realize, like, I knew you were going on vacation. I didn't realize it was for, yeah, concerts. And you said rock, and I was like, would I go to a rock concert? And then you started naming all the bands. I'm like, I would have loved to be there. That's
Yeah,
classics.
There were also some bands that like my partner really enjoyed more than I did, and that are like newer and also older too, but that was different, like kind of style, very like rock metal stuff that like that's not always my favorite. But then yeah, I got to see like a lot of, yeah, like you said, the classics, like the older yeah, I think like maybe like 12. All I could think of about was like when I was like 12, 13, 14, like those, yeah, early. And they played a lot of music from that time too, because some of the bands have like produced newer
Right.
stuff since then. So I was kind of like some of the I wouldn't be familiar with, but anyways, they played a lot of older stuff, which I was just like, this is just awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's just sitting with lots of gratitude, sitting with lots
Mm.
of good stuff over here. So how about you? What's shaking over your way?
Well, I just love that. Anyway, I'm still smiling. Those moments, yeah, just those moments where it's like I just when I was going to San Diego last year, traveling by myself, first time leaving the country totally by myself. And I was like, oh my God, like you're a big kid now. Like that song, like I'm a big kid now, like the Pampers commercial or something. But I'm like, who let me do this? Like, who is
Yeah.
letting me leave the country on my own? Anyway, it was fine. It was great. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think I feel like I can tap into that feeling that you felt of like,
Mhm.
wow, like I've arrived in this moment or whatever that means, you know? But
Yeah.
for me, what do I want to talk about? There's so much, but I think I'll talk about my plants because that is the thing that brings me all the joy. Last year, the end of the season, I dug out a big flower bed. For those of you who don't know, I am eventually going to have no grass left because I just keep adding more and more flower beds. Better for the ecosystem. That's my, that's the lie I'm covering. Well, it's not a lie, but that's the excuse I'm covering up my joy of gardening with. But anyway, it is not as fruitful as I thought it would be because I just put a bunch of little splits in the ground of it last year. But I realized that the soil is like quite dense. I'm not going to go down a big nerdy thing, but something I really love to do is like I take a look at that and I always extrapolate like plants and gardening to humans and healing. Like I feel like they are so like there's so much crossover in metaphors, but the
Mhm.
soil needs nourishment, it needs to be fed, it needs to be enriched, and I know once I do, the plants will bloom. So I'm really excited to give to that part of my garden. The other parts are blooming like they always do, but this was new and I took out the grass. So just excited to see what comes from like the effort. And that's the best thing about planting. It's like you see the fruits of your labor, not quickly. It's not like all of a sudden it's just boom and beautiful unless you're buying really big plants that are already done and like grown. So it teaches me a lot of patience, which is something that's been a journey for me for a long time. So I'm excited to see where the end of this season takes us. But anyway,
Nice.
that's where I was before coming onto this call.
Yeah, it's funny because actually you mentioned the flower thing, and I actually took pictures when I was in Florida of flowers. So and then I had for you because I'm
Yay!
gonna send those to you. Because I remember earlier, I think it was like in January when I left, you're like, you see any flowers? And I looked for flowers everywhere. And every time I would see them, it was like we were like in a cab and we were past them or like anyways. But I found some in Florida. I was like, I need to take a picture of this for for tips. So I had to do
I
that.
love that.
Send it to you. Yeah.
Please spam me with your flower pics. And that is a massive shout out to anybody. Please spam me with your flower pics. Your homegrown, a special one you saw in the wild, whatever.
I love that. I love your love and enthusiasm for the gardening and flowers, and even like what you said about like, yeah, like not the slow growth, right? There is a lot of crossover, I think, and like, how, yeah, how that works for both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And like, I feel like I talk to lots of people who love gardening, and it's not for everybody. I get that. But
Mhm.
there's just something so healing about it. And like, just like
Mhm.
natural healing. Like, there's no forcing, it is literally organic. Like, to talk about soil, but
Yeah.
it is literally organic and it takes my spinning thoughts. It just like quiets my mind. I feel refreshed and recharged and balanced and grounded like when I walk away.
Mhm.
So even if it's hard work, like even if it's hard labor, I just feel so nourished. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
on that note, that'll be a nice segue into our topic of the day because there was a time I needed to live in the garden to ground myself. I could not come inside. If I came inside, I was very anxious. No, I mean, I'm joking, but ish. But no, it actually gardening saved me from a time when like things were really tough, and emotional spiraling. That's where we're going to go today. And I think it just goes intrinsically, like hand in hand with anxiety, but not just anxiety. We can have emotional spiraling over other things that is not anxious related.
Mhm.
But when I was thinking about this episode, and I don't know if anybody, well, I'm sure lots of people watched Full House. It was a classic back in our time. But the spin-off came out, Fuller House, which I was raising my son, and it came out at a time where it was appropriate for him to watch. And for anyone who has seen it, there's Kimmy Gibbler's brother Jimmy. Anyway, as he's a very funny character, but as the seasons progress in the Fuller House, he talks about like how he has anxiety, but he comes on the screen and like you can see it's building in him. So like it's a physical thing you see building in him, and he's like, anxiety, and he just like shouts it out. And anytime I think about anxiety, that is the first thing that pops in my head. But anyway, that's just a side story. If you haven't seen it, it's a funny clip. I'm sure you can Google Jimmy Gibbler anxiety. But that's definitely how it feels on the inside for me when it's like
Mm.
bubbling, bubbling,
Mhm.
bubbling, and just want to like scream it. But anyway, emotional spiraling. I Why this is relevant and coming up. I mean, it's obviously relevant in my own life and my own journey, but I've been doing a 4 week series in my client group because I was like, this is like a big topic. We can't cover this topic in 1 hour. Like, there is
Mhm.
so many layers, and Jess and I, you and I are not going to cover. We are going to maybe scratch the surface on things,
Yeah.
but yeah, and it brought some like really deep and enriching conversations and aha moments. And so I just thought it would be a nice conversation to have with everybody tuning in and with you and I, Jess. So yeah, that's just kind of where it came from. And yeah, so emotional spiraling. When I say that, can everybody like pinpoint, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, Jess is thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you don't, that's okay. We're going to break it down a little bit. But I thought I would be classic me and ground it with a TIFF story of a time that is I can reflect back on with a lot of humor, because in the moment it was not funny, but now it is. And I've shared the story with other people before. But okay, the long and short of it is every time I get car problems, my anxiety shoots from 0 to 1,000. And that's because I was very grateful. My parents bought me a car when I was graduating high school so that when I went off to university, I had a vehicle. And that
Mhm.
was great, but I did not know how to be responsible for a car at that age.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't treat it necessarily with the respect that it needed, first of all. I don't know if I truly understood the value of it either. And that's okay.
Mhm.
I was young. And then when things went wrong, it was like I felt like deer in headlights, like, oh no, what do I do? And I had a strong pattern of avoidance at that season in my life. And so it would get worse and get worse to the point where something really bad would happen with it. And then it was like, now this is thousands of dollars to fix. Excellent.
The dash is like lit up like a Christmas tree. You're like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. Everything is fine. Yeah.
Everything's fine. It is driving
Yeah.
me to work. We're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a time I needed new tires, and yeah, I literally had a bicycle pump in my car at all time because I had a flat tire, and I would just pump it up and drive up to work. Anyway, that left an imprint on my nervous system. All that to say, all of those times of feeling like, oh my God, and it would overwhelm me. I avoided it because I it would overwhelm me. So this was last year, but the story is as clear as day in my mind. I come home from picking up my son or dropping him off, doesn't matter, and I hear the car. And like I'm not good at making noises, so we're just gonna go with ka-chunk, ka-chunk, okay? It's making a noise out as I'm pulling in the driveway. And I was like, that wasn't there before. Oh no. My heart is instantly racing. I come
Mhm.
storming into the house. My partner's sitting on the couch, and I was like, my car, it's making a noise. Like, I didn't say hello. There was nothing. I'm pacing, and I'm like, I was like, oh my God, I don't have enough money to pay for this. Like, what, oh, what, da da da. Like, I had made up this whole thing. And even
Mm,
as I tell the story, I
mm,
can feel the elevation. And I was spinning out. My eyes could not land in any one place. And then it did hit a more serious note where that overwhelm of the anxiety flooded me so hard, so fast, I just withdrew. And this all happened within about 5 minutes. But I was like, it quickly turned to an internal dialogue of like, you're so irresponsible. How could you let your car be this way? You know, the tapes
mhm.
from when I was younger, basically,
Yeah.
how you don't have money to pay for it. What do you think you're gonna do? Like, and so what was an just an external thing that happened? Yes, the noise was real. That was true. Yes, my anxiety spiked. That was real. That was true. But then what happened is that old scripts, old stories from a time in my life that was like difficult, they came to the surface in that dysregulated space. And if I stayed with that, I could have really made those stories reality. And it was very interesting. So my partner realized, like, so he was just staring at me wide eyed as I'm like spinning out, like literally spinning out. You just imagine little tornado Tiff just going around the room, like speaking at a million miles a minute. And he was like, Tiff, just the calm in my storm. Have you called a garage? Like, so simple. Like, and I
Mhm.
was like,
Mhm.
well, no. He said, well, how do you know it costs too much? Like, how do you even know what's wrong with it? And I was like, I mean, that's a fair point. And it doesn't always snap me back that fast, but it was such a
Mhm.
quick snap back to reality. But like logic wasn't available to me in that moment. It wasn't
Mhm.
like, thank goodness there was somebody there to offer that to me because I don't know how the rest of that night would have looked. And I wouldn't like to sell the story that it was just instantly better after he said that because that's not true. Um, I was still very nervous, but in being able to find that calm and rationale, even just a little bit of it, allowed me to take action to then actually deal with it as opposed to like catastrophize. Because in my
Mhm.
mind, it was going to cost me $10,000 and I didn't have that money and everything was falling apart. The motor blew up, like you name it. I needed new
Yeah.
brakes.
Yeah.
That it was $600. It was like, yeah, it still sucks, but anyway. So I share that story because it's well, first of all, it makes me laugh because when I think about how if I was sitting on the couch and somebody had burst into the house like that, just like hot, hot on her trail. Anyway, I'm sure all of you can relate to having a moment of like, or many moments. And spirals don't always look like that. That's just one example from my own life, of course. But just how quick, I guess, is the part that I would like to highlight from my story. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, just as I'm talking about that, when you thinking about emotional spirals, like what does that mean for you, or like what does that look like? And maybe not even just personally, it could be objective, either or.
Yeah, it's so funny that you're like, yeah, because it's such a good example too, right? Because it's like everything becomes really big when we're
Yes.
in this emotional spiral, like this emotional place, right? And so I think that's like, yeah, it's so relatable because it's like worst case scenario. And then we do often go back to like our part in it, right? Like this is my fault, or we find this is your fault, right? So it's like we blame ourselves, or we have to find somebody else to blame. So yeah, I think that is just, yeah, I think it's so relatable, and thanks for sharing that. I think when I think about emotional spiral, and something that came up when you were kind of sharing the story is, and I did this a lot for myself, like, and then I used it a lot with the clients that I would have when I was doing addictions counseling, but we think about an emotion, right? So in that moment, I don't know, maybe you're feeling like maybe angry or like anxious or whatever that like feeling is. And then like we tell like there's this whole piece of like all of this story stuff that we
Yeah.
attach to the feeling, right?
Yeah.
And this is like the part of the spiral. So when I think of an emotional spiral, it's all of this stuff that makes us spiral. It's really actually not about the feeling.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would like say to people like, um, they would start be like, well, I feel so upset, right? I feel angry. And then because, and I would say, well, hang on a second. Let's
Yeah.
not pay attention to the because. Let's talk about the feeling, right? What does that feeling bring up for you, right? Like what is it that like how do you feel it in your body? What do you say to yourself in your mind? It's like because it's like that allows us to go deeper and deeper and deeper into a spiral, right?
Yeah.
It becomes like yeah, I feel angry because I did this or because you did this. And what that means is that you don't love me or I don't love myself. And what that means is that I really didn't do any of the healing I say that I
Yeah.
did. And what that means is that I'm a liar. And then what that means is, right? And like all of this spiral, like, we can go. And I think you're right. Like we do that so quickly, right? And so, yeah, when I think about emotional spiral, I guess for me, if it was like, yeah, just trying to separate the feeling or what I was feeling to the story I was telling myself about the feeling
Right.
because that's where the spiraling really came into like action was all of the the narrative that I was giving. And I know we talked a little bit about that in another episode, but yeah,
Yes.
it's it just goes on and on and on and on and on, hence the spiral, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Super good point what you're just saying. It's like, wait, stop at the because. The because is
Hmm.
like we're trying to intellectualize it. The because is we are trying to, yeah, make it make sense in a dysregulated
Hmm.
mind, like, or nervous
Yeah.
system. Like, yeah, let me make sense of something when I don't have access to logic. Like, that makes total
Yeah.
sense. You know, I say
Yeah.
that
And it's
sarcastically.
easier, I think it's easier too to like work with a feeling than work with the story of why we're feeling it, right?
Yeah,
Like it's easy to be like, this is what anger is, and this is what it means for me, and this is how I understand it to show up in my own body. This is how I understand it to show up in my mind. It's easier to be able to work with that instead of all of the stories that we tell ourselves about the feeling or why we're feeling it when we don't even know if that's true in a place where we're so emotionally activated,
right,
right?
right.
Because the stuff that we're fueling it with, yeah, we don't even know if that's facts in the moment. So it just becomes a little
No,
bit easier to work with the feeling instead of, yeah, all of the emotional stuff that we attach to it, I think, right?
yeah. And yeah, what does that feeling need? You said you asked a question. I can't remember exactly the words, but you're like, well, what does that? I'm not sure exactly what you said, but when you were talking, when you stopped them at the because, and then
Mhm.
you asked a different question, I was like, yes, like,
Mhm.
yeah, I can't remember word for word, but
Yeah, I probably don't remember now either, but I can rewind and see. But
yeah,
yeah, like
you.
how does it show up? Like what does that mean for you?
How
Like,
does it show up? Yeah,
yeah, like all of the yeah, deeper questions around the feeling, right?
yeah, and like, yeah, what expression does that feeling need? It doesn't need a
Mhm.
story. It
Yeah.
needs like maybe you're angry, you want to scream into a pillow, or you want to go run, or you want to,
Yeah.
like, what do you want to do with it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because feelings are valid, but the stories we attach to them are not necessarily true. Like
Hmm.
sometimes they can be. I'm not saying it's all black or white, but yeah, it's I'm guilty as charged of intellectualizing feelings. Like and I've talked about that here before, you know. It's like, well, if I can make it make sense, then maybe I'll feel okay. Maybe I'll feel in
Yeah.
control.
Yeah.
But it creates more suffering. Like what you said, it goes deeper and deeper into the spiral. And the irony of when that car, I feel like I was like being tested or something. The irony of that time, I was in a workshop for emotional mastery, and this literally happened in mid container of the program. And I was like, okay. And at the time, I made it mean something, but no, it was just like, okay, this is it in action, and these are things that I can work with or just understand.
Mhm.
Um, and something that I learned from that program was around, and it was right after the week that we were talking about spirals, but I had never heard of it before. And it's like the ascending or descending spiral.
Mm.
And when we, like you were saying, like we go deeper and deeper into it, the bottom of a descending spiral is shame. It is like hopelessness. It is like at the bottom, I call it the basement. Like it is, you're in the worst place. You're like,
Mhm.
what's the point? You know?
Yeah.
And that what I was taught in that program is that the goal is to like catch yourself wherever you can. And if you go all the way down, like, no, that's okay. Like, you know, it's the
Mhm.
humanness, but it's to get yourself to the point where you feel bored of the same pattern playing over. Like I am bored of this, like the car thing. Like when the car thing happened this time, I'm like, this isn't new. This is from when
Yeah.
I was younger, you know? Like
Mhm.
how can I show up in this differently? Not to fix
Yeah.
it, but like what different awareness do I want to hold? And when we can stay kind of in that space from boredom to curiosity, the spiral ascends upwards into action, into feeling in control, to feeling like, safe and
Mhm.
grounded.
Yeah.
Anyway, I, that stuck with me. But
Yeah.
anyway, um, so question that I had when thinking about this is because spirals, I mean, they can look different depending on different intensities and um, different things that are going on. The way I like to say it are like, what are the ingredients of a spiral? And this is the question that I ask some of my clients, like their specific ingredients. What is your unique recipe of things that happen? And those can be physical things, those can be
Mhm.
external, internal, they can be certain thoughts, certain behaviors, certain like just what becomes specific to you. So Jess, what would you say are some ingredients to an emotional spiral?
Yeah, I think it definitely looks like so different for
Yeah.
everybody, right? Like for sure. Um, I think one of the things, if I can even relate it to my own experience, I think one of the things that I didn't ever really pay attention to before that often contributes to my emotional spiraling is like my physical environment. So, or yeah, my physical environment, and I don't know how to say what I mean, so I'll just try. But like, if if my watch is on too tightly, that will
Mm,
contribute to my emotional spiral. If I hear music in the background, that will contribute to it. If there's like someone trying to tell me something and a TV is on too loud, that will contribute to my emotional spiraling. It's just like the stimulation that I have in my environment will often lead to like a deeper spiral for me, I think. Like yeah, like all of these things that I have to like pay attention to or that I feel or that I can see, like sometimes if it's like a dirty window or like we were just talking about this before we recorded, but like a dirty baseboard or something. If I'm
yes.
already in a space and I
Yeah.
see that, like it just adds to it and it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper.
Mm,
So I think, and like I've never really paid it. I mean, I've been on my like on a journey of like understanding like my mind a little bit better in the last, year. And just how those things really do contribute to some of like my behaviors and the things that I need. But yeah, I've never really thought about that before. Like that's not something I've ever paid attention to understand um I guess as an ingredient, yeah, to like an emotional spiral. And also then I think about, things uh, like did I eat breakfast
yeah.
or am I like is it too hot? Am I dehydrated? Did I get enough sleep? And then I also think about, am I like what did my week look like? Am I busy? Like so there's so many different
Yeah.
things I think that go into, and it's not like, I mean, if you make bread, like you have like these five or six, ingredients or
Yep.
whatever. I think for like an emotional spiral, it can be, yeah, those five and six, or it could be to like 10 or 15, or it could be only two, or maybe it's like there's so many different ways to make
Yeah.
an emotional spiral, but somehow I always end up in the same, in the same place. It just, yeah, it looks different in how I get there, I guess.
Yeah. I actually never even thought about that part until you just talked about that. Just there's some what when you were talking in DBT, like dialectical behavioral therapy, they call those vulnerability factors. So how many
Mm,
vulnerability factors, like did I eat? Have I had enough sleep? Am I overstimulated? Like did I get enough connection? Like those pieces definitely feed into, for me, I'll speak for myself, like emotional stability, like if my
mm,
ability to stay grounded just a little with a little more ease.
mm,
Um, Thanks for sharing that. Cause yeah, I wasn't even like, yeah, my brain went in a totally different direction. So that was awesome. Yeah, those
Okay, well,
fa
I'd like to hear, yeah, what do you like what where did your brain go?
yeah, this is why I love having conversations. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, made me, that just made me think. And also why I wanted to do a 4 week long thing. I was like, there's so
Mhm.
much there, and there's so much. Anyway, yeah, where I go is like some of the, I wish I had my paper in front of me, and let me just like check and see if it's right here. Because like when I was journaling about it, okay, yeah. Some of the ingredients for me were more like once I'm in it. So like, okay, I'm not
Mm.
leading to the creation of it, but like I'm here. So being able to have that awareness to recognize it, because
Mm.
the awareness doesn't fix it. Like I don't want to fix it, but the awareness allows me to take a bird's eye view sometimes. It allows me to like kind of take a step back sometimes, not always. But some of the things that came up for me when I journaled about it is that I feel this deep sense of urgency. So it's like flooding through my body. It's
Mm.
urgent, it's emergent. It is now, 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 now. Everything else,
Yeah.
nothing matters. Just like when I burst into the house. I don't know. He could have been crying on the couch. He wasn't. But
Yeah.
he could, something terrible could have just happened. I had zero awareness, you know. There was
Yeah.
just so much urgency. Um the other thing is just taking a look here is that I become very obsessive. And so my thought loops go round and round and round
Mhm.
and round, and I just spin. And there might be a few different ones, and if I'm really feeling chaotic, there might be several, and making that tornado piece again. But
Yeah.
it's they're obsessively running around and around and around. And those things are, I underlined them. There was a lot of other things I wrote, but I underlined them because for me that is like a good awareness piece to be like let's take a
Mm.
breath. Let's take a breath and let's relax and like just take a step back if we can. Tiffany, I'm
Yeah.
talking to myself like I'm multiple people, but my different parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we can, like let's and a question that I've learned to be very effective for me, and we can get into a few more tools later, but it was something I talked about in my group is when I feel that, and if I can step into awareness and I feel like I have capacity, the question I ask myself is where can I do less here? Because like I feel this urgency. I feel like I want to fix everything, make it better. I feel like yeah, and it doesn't mean like maybe even doing physical less things, like what less things can I think about? What less can I do? It's just like a prompt for me, I guess. You know, it's like a prompt
Mm.
that says, okay, like let's tune into ourselves. Let's tune in, Tiffany, and like feel. So when I was thinking of ingredients, I guess I was thinking about like yes, that question, thought patterns, like bodily sensations, like just things to tune into the awareness of like, oh, I'm doing that thing again.
Right.
That
Yeah.
like I'm human, of course I'm going to do it, but I'm doing that thing again.
Yeah.
And because yeah, awareness is enough. It's enough
Yeah.
to help us choose differently. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, thanks for like kind of sharing that too, because I think it's interesting to see like again when we talk about the ingredients, like how many places like it can come from, right? Or like that can contribute to like the descending, it was that, yeah, the
Descending.
descending
Yeah.
spiral, right? And when you talk about like the obsessive and like the urgency, like, yeah, it comes from a place of like, well, our stress response, right? Like fight, flight, or flee, freeze, or
Yeah.
fawn. Like, what is, and so, yeah, that is a very urgent because we have to make the decision like now, and we're in
Yeah.
it now. And then the obsessiveness too, like, kind of like, yeah, the visualization of like it just being the same thing, like in a loop, right? Like, and yeah, for me, like, nothing gets solved in that loop, like when I'm going around and around and around and around, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't really think about that before.
Yeah, the word that came up for almost everybody when we talked about it was trapped. That loop. It's like I'm trapped in that loop. That's what it
Mm,
feels like in that moment. And I was like, yeah, it's like because I'd imagine the
mm,
power of a tornado, if we want to make it a metaphor, a tornado comes in and it comes in hot and
yeah.
it comes in fast and it's intense. You're not getting out of a tornado if you're sucked up into a
Mhm.
well, maybe some people do, but I don't think that that's
Yeah.
So just to like ground the idea, I feel like I need to be a bit more sensitive in case any, to, around tornadoes. But anyway,
In case any of you have been sucked into a tornado before,
thank you
sorry, we
for
don't mean to
finishing
be
that sentence. I was like, I shouldn't even be saying anything right now.
That's so funny. For all of you who have been stuck in tornado, we're sorry. We didn't mean to offend you. That's hilarious. I love it.
Oh, Jess. Oh, man.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh man, yeah. But it is true though. It becomes
Yeah.
it's harder, right? To like, to get out of that when
Yeah.
yeah, we're trapped in it, right? Like we're trapped. So it's like how do you escape from it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the like, and I think again that answer is going to be so specific, and I think it's also going to be unique to each person to depending on what's
Hmm.
happening.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why it's just like I feel like for me that even just having the awareness just reduces the intensity a little bit. And it's like, okay, might not get me out of it. I might not be able, but it's like, okay, it might ground me or stop me in that place and not going further down.
Yeah.
And then the steps out look different depending on, kind of how that is. But I think I talked about it here before and this just popped in, but uh, I was listening to somebody speak and they were like, the goal, I definitely talked about it here. The goal is not to regulate emotions. The goal is to regulate behaviors that come from emotions. And I
Mm,
was like, I just love that. It just, to me, makes so much sense because the emotion
yeah.
isn't the challenge. But yes, if I am in this intensity, and then I go and do something harmful to myself or others as an example, like I don't know. I can't insert an example right now, but like something that yeah, like I make an action from that place of
Mm,
urgency. That is the thing that I look to like support myself through. The feeling, yeah, the feeling
yeah.
needs my attention too, but I don't need to fix it. It's like it just needs to be understood.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, that just popped in. That was a bit of a side note, but
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a
Um
good sign of
yeah. So the question I have, because based on my story and based on a lot of my own journey personally, but like okay, two concepts, self-attunement and co-regulation. And something that I was thinking about a lot because I'm a mom, as you all know, and there's a lot of emphasis in the parenting world on co-regulation, especially like for your child who might be dysregulated, to be their calm to their storm and,
Mhm.
to have that landing space. And so I do want, like, my partner was that for me in that moment. He was very calm and logical. Like, he didn't join my storm when I was spinning out and pacing around the room. He was just like, hey, like, did you call the
Mm,
garage? Like, do you
mhm.
actually know what's wrong with the car? And because I was receptive to that, that was helpful. But it was also very regulating because it was like, oh, A, I'm not alone here. Okay.
Yeah.
B, yeah, there's somebody else who holds my regard and is regulated, and nervous systems can lend and take from that, like back and forth. But my question is, and I feel like I don't know the answer, but like, can we learn to be self-attuned to be able to ground this all on our own, or do we need co-regulation? I'm not even sure that that question is 100% clear, but like obviously having co-regulation is super helpful, but can we do it
Mhm.
totally on our own? Like, can we just be that self-attuned that we don't need anybody else to bounce it off of? Or yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of thoughts, I guess, immediate thoughts,
Okay.
and I've given myself the permission to
Share
not
them.
think this is true any longer if I don't think like anyways, I'm gonna talk it out. And if I come in at the end and it's like, actually, I don't know if I believe that anymore, then that's okay.
Verbal processing. Let's go.
Exactly. So when I think about co-regulation, I think I think co-regulation is foundational, actually. And
Yeah.
so I think the truth is both are important, self-attunement and co-regulation, right? I think both are important.
Yeah.
Self-attunement, I believe, or self regulation, whatever we want to call it, I think is something that we can build. So we can, it's a skill, right? To be
Yeah.
able to self-regulate. I think that part is like we tune into our own like internal cues. We're being present with ourselves. We're bringing our nervous system kind of like back into balance. Um, and I think our capacity to self-regulate, though, is built through experiences of co-regulation with other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So, like, I think about babies or as children, right? Like, we don't have the ability to regulate ourselves, right? And so we actually need a regulated adult to
Yeah.
help calm us down, right? And so that actually, like, literally wires our nervous system for what self-regulation will look like in the future. And so, what I think like I think about co-regulation and like the role I guess that it plays is like it's not a nice thing to have. It's not like, oh, that'd be great. I think that it like is a necessity for like this emotional development, I guess. And like, do everybody have access to that all the time? No, I don't
No.
think so, right? And can people become self-attuned without a another person to help with co-regulation? I'm not sure because it might not
Yeah.
have came from our parents. It might not have come from, our immediate kind of like the people we had the most access to, but it might come through like maybe therapy or maybe a teacher or maybe a
Yeah.
coach or maybe a friend. Like I think it comes from some places. And then once we have like, yeah, we've established what that co-regulation or that relationship looks like, then we can build on that skill. But I do think that, yeah, I do think that like biologically, I think it is necessary, like co-regulation is necessary for, yeah, to get to the place of self-attunement. I think, I think.
Those were impressive immediate thoughts. Okay. Um, yeah, I actually really agree with you. And the part around, yeah, like if your parent couldn't give it to you because of all their own stuff, maybe they didn't have it growing up or whatever that looks like.
Mhm.
Yeah, how do we get that imprint of self-regulation if we haven't co-regulated with somebody, right? Like
Yeah.
that's exactly where my thoughts land too. And like I don't I would love to hear from an expert in this area who would,
Yeah.
be really rooted in these principles. But yeah, because it's not always available. And can we learn? Yeah, it's a skill. It's a muscle. I feel like self-attunement, self-regulation, those are muscles. And we learn
Mhm.
how to flex them, so to speak, how to grow them, how to with practice
Yeah.
and but yeah, without having it at some point, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I know that having been in therapy or also being a coach, I just know the importance of co-regulation, of like being the calm person or having the calm person, and not, I think we might have talked about it in episode 4, but like if my kid's having a hard time, and I say because he's younger, his nervous system's like he's younger, he's in a little tugboat in the middle of the ocean. I'm on a bigger boat because I've got more muscle, whatever. But like if he's in the storm and I hop off of my bigger ship that's able to tow him out and I hop on his boat, what's gonna happen? We're both gonna
Mhm.
be tossed
Yeah.
around in the storm together. Whereas when I can stay on mine and guide or like steer us, let my nervous system help guide us out of it, it's so much more helpful. And anyway,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, because I think like our nervous system syncs with people like around us, right? So it's like when we're around someone who is calm or attuned or, whatever, I think our nervous system begins to mirror that as
Yeah,
well, right? And
yeah,
so I think it has a really big impact when we can't reach that on our own. And also co-regulation, like even speaking like with like a kid, it builds trust, right? And it
yeah,
builds safety
yeah,
and yeah, just like lets us know, I guess, like on a deeper level that like this is like okay, like we're gonna make it out of here. I can just call the garage and find out what's wrong with my car, like,
Right, right.
Um, and if we don't receive that, like I said, not everyone has access to those adults in their life, but
Yeah,
like on a frequent basis. But I think that's, we talk about resilience a lot, and I think like resilience comes from the small pieces maybe that we've picked up from co-regulating with others, like in smaller circumstances, smaller interactions, and maybe it's just, yeah, we practice that, and then we can like self-attunement can come from that, or we can learn how to regulate ourselves from that. But yeah, I don't know. It's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. Just things to think about, things that pop in. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah,
So, yeah, with a
yeah.
little bit of time left here, just because like we do tend to bring some practical nature to a lot of what we talk about. In talking about like what I said, what we were talking about earlier is like, yeah, it's not about fixing. It's not about writing the story or trying to fix the story or um, what are some ways that we can be, and we did touch on this a little bit before, but like in specific to this, where we can be with the spiral or in it, you know, um, that kind of help us move through it or to process without bypassing. Because bypassing is really easy to do. The self-abandonment, the avoidance, the strategies that
Mm.
help push it away. Um, yeah, I mean, Jess, you talked about a good thing about tapping into the feeling. Are there any other like tools or strategies that come to mind, whether from your client work or yourself?
um I think, yeah, I don't know, I think this is also like a good question because when I talk about like tapping into that feeling, like, yeah, that has worked before, where before I get to the, okay, because I can cut that off. I mean, does that always happen in every, no, of
Yeah,
course not, right? But I think it is really hard to establish what works when I'm in the middle of something, right? Like if I'm in the middle of this emotional spiral
yeah,
and like going down, like, yeah, just keep getting deeper. Um, I was going somewhere with that thought, but
can be difficult to
um,
even know.
difficulty to know. Oh yeah, so like yeah, because like I I I don't know actually. Like I'm not sure how I do that or like what it looks like because I'm very big on having to really separate myself in
Yeah,
moments like that because if I stay in it, I will continue to. So whether that's with myself, if it's in a conflict with somebody else, if it's like whatever, like if I will continue and just continue and continue. Um, but like, yeah, like, so without actually taking a step away, like actually separating
yeah,
myself from, I don't actually know how I stay in it or like stay with it, I guess.
yeah.
Like, yeah, what about you? What kind of like, what does that, like, what does that look like? Or what could it look like for other people, I guess? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, and you just like raised a key point too. Like if we're if survival mode's been activated, fight, flight, freeze, fawn is activated in us, it is very hard to like even be able to grab onto anything, you know? Like this part, the
Yeah.
logical part of our brain is offline. We are operating from survival, what our body knows as automatic patterns. Um,
Yeah.
something that, well, something that I find that has been helpful for me is really, really identifying the ingredients, really identifying my
Mm.
cues, because if I'm aware of them,
Mm.
and they do look different, but there are some really strong overarching themes and connections. And
Mm.
like even when I rewrote them out just this like a couple of weeks ago, different things jumped out at me too. But like just being able to hold that in my awareness, like I said, allows me to not check myself because it's not checking myself, but it allows me to pause, I think is the word. It's like, it's just like, oh, I'm doing that thing. And in that moment, I can then choose to take a breath. In that moment, I can choose to maybe go pace or go run or something that will like meet my nervous system where it's at. Do I do that perfectly? No. And to my mom who's listening, she's been on the receiving end of many of these phone calls of me spiraling out. So just want to say that. But I do think the awareness of what the pattern looks like is really powerful. Of like, or like what the patterns or the ingredients of it look like. So like
Mm.
my racing heart, I'm super fidgety, I can't sit still, I'm checking my phone 100 times, there are these very specific things that set me up to go deeper down. And it's like it's a moment for me to stop and be like, what is actually going on here? Because maybe I'm not attuned. You're looking at me just like, am I making any sense, or am I, or
Mm.
you have questions?
Yeah, no, I was just really thinking about what you were saying
Yeah.
actually, because I think that, yeah, like it's like thinking about like catching it before it happens kind of thing, right? Or like not maybe not before it happens, but like knowing when it is gonna like maybe get more intense or like it's gonna go
Yeah.
a step further or something like that. Yeah, like yeah, I was just thinking about that as you were sharing, like about, I mean, even in my own, like, what does that look like for me? Like, what are those things? So, yeah, it was, I think that's very helpful, actually.
I was like, maybe I'm not making any sense.
No,
Look at me making
no.
meaning out of something. You were just
I was
thinking.
just like really thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I find I'm somebody who grasps for control a lot. And I will say that probably came from that place, but it has actually been helpful of like, oh,
Mhm.
it's really helped my self-attunement. It's like, oh, I'm doing that
Yeah.
thing. What is actually going on? You know,
Yeah.
and can I do less? And yeah, and the other thing I would say is if I can even, well, I understand that maybe not everybody has this, but like if you have a person in your life that is willing to see you in any state, that they are going to hold you
Mhm.
and love you in any state, connecting to that person or persons
Yeah.
in that space for me has been very helpful. Of like, well, I just said my mom. I also had a best friend who picked up the phone no matter when I called, and because our
Mhm.
relationship was important, and being able to be met in that space diffused it so much faster. That connection piece.
Yeah.
And that is not for everybody, perhaps. I do recognize that, and that requires a lot of vulnerability to be really seen when we're in
For
that
sure.
space as well. So I do want to acknowledge that for sure. But I would say those are the things that at this time in my journey feel the most impactful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I still spiral? Heck yes.
Yes.
Do I still laugh about it?
Mm.
Heck yes. Especially when you come out on the other side and like, wow, I really went to crazy town there for a minute, you know?
Yeah.
I made it
Yeah,
mean
the
this
the
and this.
aftermath is always yeah, the aftermath is always like yeah, we always see things a little more clearly when we're out of the survival, right? When we're out of that obsessiveness or the yeah, the looping, we're not trapped in it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So true. Yeah. I'll
Hmm.
love that, Jess. There was a quote that came up, and it came up as anonymous, so I don't know who it is, but it is to kind of speak to that part where you were talking about the stories earlier, Jess. But it says the stories we believe in our spiral aren't always true, but they feel true because of our history. And I was
Mm.
like, that hits it right on the money. It feels
Yeah.
so true.
Yeah.
Um, because there's some part of you that something happened, or there was a belief made, or
Yeah.
so I share that because we always speak about the compassion and the gentleness. And this isn't because we're not here to shame spirals. We're here to
Mhm.
talk about it and, yeah, just bring light, I guess. And
Yeah.
yeah, we don't need to like fix the spirals, but we can support them. I feel like is more my intention anyway for myself is like now is that I can
Yeah.
find more support instead of fixing them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Jess, I'm just wondering if, as we get ready to close off, if you have any last thoughts on the topic before we head off for the day.
Yeah, I think my only thoughts is that I have more to think about in terms of yeah, emotional spirals, because I think you're right. Like we all have in the four agreements, they are called emotional wounds.
Yeah,
And our nervous system actually doesn't know the difference between the first time or the millionth time that, something happens or that we go through an experience or we feel the feeling. So, yeah, it just helped me understand a little bit more um, yeah, my body reacts as if it's like still that same experience, right? So,
yeah,
just leads me to, I guess, navigate it with a little more, yeah, softness, gentleness,
yeah.
compassion, for sure. So yeah, I think this is like a really great topic, actually, the emotional spiral. So yeah, lots more to think about as well.
I that reminds me of our voice notes. You're like, I don't know, but I'm going to think about that. I love that you
Yeah.
say that. Like, I'm going to think about that.
Yeah.
And I also meant to say, Jess, your catchphrase is catching on before we head off. Someone came to me the other day and they're like, well, it's a beautiful day. Have a beautiful day. I was like, well, there's my Jess in spirit. They got it from the
Yes.
podcast. I loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. So, with
Awesome.
that, everybody, it is a beautiful day to have a beautiful day. And thanks for
Mhm.
being here on the conversation. You want to drop us a line, you know where to find us. And until next time, stay soulful. Thanks for tuning into Soulful. We hope you found something meaningful to carry with you on your journey. And if you enjoyed today's episode and want to show your support, we invite you to subscribe, share the podcast, and leave a review wherever you listen.
And if you're eager for more, you can connect with us on Instagram and Facebook at Soulful the Podcast for additional content and updates. Until next time, stay soulful.